Welcome back to Crime Documentary Files. In this video, we'll dive into two shocking cases from India. Cases filled with twists that seem almost too unbelievable to be true. On May 23, 2025, a newlywed couple, just 12 days into their marriage, faced a horrifying tragedy during their honeymoon. The husband was thrown off a 900-meter cliff. His body was found mangled, with fatal injuries to his head and abdomen. The wife disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only a blood-stained jacket at the scene. What initially looked like a tragic accident quickly turned into a suspected murder. 3 suspicious men had been tailing the couple beforehand, and every one of the 234 phone calls the wife made prior to the incident went to the same man. Was this a carefully orchestrated murder, or simply a violent robbery gone wrong? Let's rewind to May 11th, 2025. That day, Raghuvanshi, 30 years old and heir to a wealthy family, married Sonam Raghuvanshi, a 24-year-old woman from an equally affluent background. This was a textbook example of an arranged marriage in India. They were introduced back in October 2024 through a matchmaking agency specializing in connecting individuals of similar social standing. The process was traditional. Only after both sets of parents agreed were the couple allowed to get to know each other further. Raja was not entirely in favor of arranged marriages, but as the youngest and most obedient son, he rarely went against his parents. So when they told him they had found a suitable bride, he agreed, albeit reluctantly. Raja's family ran a prosperous logistics company. Sonam's family owned a successful metalworking factory. Financially and socially, the match was ideal. They came from the same community and were close in age. Raja's mother was especially pleased. At the very first meeting, she decided this was the right match. She believed Sonam came from a traditional household that valued cultural norms, just the kind of daughter-in-law she wanted. Once both families gave their blessing, Raja took the initiative to get to know Sonam better before the wedding. However, for reasons unknown, Sonam showed little interest. While Raja was enthusiastic, she remained cold and distant, showing no excitement for the upcoming marriage. No matter how many texts Raja sent, Sonam responded with short, indifferent messages, and sometimes didn't reply at all for days. Raja felt frustrated. If she was this uninterested before the wedding, would she ever truly invest in the relationship afterward? Raja turned to his mother, hoping she could intervene and convince Sonam to meet up, perhaps go for dinner or watch a movie together. But Sonam's family firmly declined. Her parents explained that she wasn't raised that way. Their family followed strict traditions and forbade any one-on-one meetings before marriage. Raja's mother eventually met with Sonam in person. She told Sonam she understood her concerns, but reminded her that it was also important to consider the groom's feelings. At the very least, she encouraged Sonam to be more communicative and show some care toward Raja. After that, Sonam became noticeably more responsive. Her conversations with Raja grew more frequent and warm. On May 11th, 2025, the wedding took place as scheduled. Everyone seemed happy, everyone except the bride. Sonam, who should have been the happiest person in the room, looked somber and withdrawn, as if she wanted nothing to do with this marriage. After the wedding, Sonam moved into Raja's family home and immediately urged him to go on their honeymoon. Raja wasn't very enthusiastic. It had barely been a week since the wedding, but Sonam kept insisting. Raja, being soft-hearted, eventually agreed and negotiated with her to visit Kashmir for their honeymoon. Unexpectedly, Sonam ignored his suggestion entirely and booked flights to the state of Assam without consulting him. She told Raja's mother that she wanted to take her husband to pray at the Kamakya temple in Guwahati to bless their new marriage. Hearing this, Raja's mother not only raised no objections, but even encouraged Raja to go, believing the trip would help strengthen their bond as husband and wife. On May 20th, 2025, the couple flew from New Delhi to Guwahati, the capital of Assam. There, they visited the temple. During the trip, Raja made a video call to his mother, who noticed the gold chain he was wearing and immediately warned him to take it off. Wearing such expensive jewelry is flashy and unsafe when traveling, she cautioned. Raja smiled and replied, I didn't want to dress up this much either, but my wife, Sonam, likes it. She thinks it's harmless. Nothing to worry about. On May 21st, the couple traveled by car to Shillong, the capital of Meghalaya State. Located at an altitude of 1,500 meters, Shillong is often shrouded in fog and is one of India's most popular summer getaways. At around 6 p.m., they checked into a hotel to rest for the night. The next morning, at 9:30 a.m. on May 22nd, they headed to Police Bazaar, the central commercial district of Shillong, filled with cafes, restaurants, and tour agencies. After walking around the area twice, they rented a scooter and returned to the hotel to check out. Their next destination was Cherrapunji, known as the rain capital of the world, boasting the highest annual rainfall on the planet. Tourists from across the globe visit Cherrapunji for its lush mountains, waterfalls, and unique climate. Eventually, Raja rode the scooter with Sonam to a nearby place called Mahdi village, celebrated as one of the cleanest villages in India. Close by lies the famous village of Nongriat, home to a rare double-decker natural root bridge made entirely from living tree roots. But this village lies deep in the valley. To witness its beauty, visitors must walk down over 3,000 steep stone steps, weaving through dense forest and verdant hills. At around 3 p.m., Raja parked the scooter, and the couple began their descent through the jungle. The path was steep and treacherous, more dangerous going down than up. Adding to the difficulty were unpredictable rain showers, slippery mountain trails, and spotty mobile signal. Navigation apps were unreliable in this area. Many tourists hire a local guide before setting off. Sometimes guides even approach visitors offering their services. Raja and Sonam were no exception. However, the guide they found spoke only the local Khasi language, had limited English skills, and didn't speak Hindi at all. This created a complete communication barrier between the couple and their guide. At about 5:30 p.m., they arrived in Nongriat village and checked into a small guest house. Since it was still early and the sunset was beautiful, they dropped off their bags and went to visit the famous root bridge before returning to rest. The next day, May 23rd, at 5:30 a.m., Raja and Sonam checked out of the guest house. They didn't have time to explore the village and began a 2.5-hour uphill trek back toward Malkirwat. By 1:30 p.m., Raja's mother tried calling her son but got no answer. She then called her daughter-in-law, Sonam. Sonam told her they were still climbing and that the signal was weak, but they would call again once they reached the top. 15 minutes later, Raja called his mother. It would be their last conversation. About 2 minutes after the call, both Raja and Sonam's phones went offline. At first, everyone assumed it was just a network issue common in mountainous areas. But by the next day, there was still no word from either of them. Fearing something had gone terribly wrong, both Raja's and Sonam's older brothers rushed to the Sohra police station in Cherrapunji to file a missing persons report. Police immediately launched a search and rescue operation, attempting to pinpoint the couple's last known location. News of Raja and Sonam's disappearance immediately made headlines across the country. The case, which involved 2 different states and a newlywed couple on their honeymoon, sparked a nationwide uproar. Public concern over travel safety in the state of Meghalaya quickly spread. Some people went so far as to criticize the Meghalaya police directly on social media, accusing them of intentionally delaying the investigation and claiming that tourism in the region was unsafe. Located in northeastern India, Meghalaya struggles with underdevelopment. Its economy is weak, the population is largely poor, and infrastructure remains limited. The region lags significantly behind other parts of the country. Additionally, due to its proximity to Myanmar, China, and Bangladesh, the local population is primarily of Mongoloid descent, resembling East Asians in appearance. As a result, they are often not accepted by the dominant cultural narrative of India. This discrimination permeates all aspects of life. For example, as soon as the case broke, Indian media outlets quickly latched onto the story, running headlines that emphasized the wild nature of the Northeast and its so-called ethnic minorities. Social media platforms also erupted with derogatory commentary toward the people of Northeast India, referring to them as savages from the mountains. On May 28, 2025, Police discovered the couple's backpack in a forest ditch next to the guest house, but their whereabouts remained a mystery. Cherrapunji, the region where the couple went missing, has an extreme climate with frequent heavy rainfall, making rescue operations extraordinarily difficult. As the days dragged on, public pressure mounted. The Union Home Minister of India personally called the Chief Minister of Meghalaya to request updates on the case. 11 days after the incident, on June 2, 2025, the National Disaster Response Force and the Meghalaya Police launched a renewed rescue mission. At around 11 a.m., rescue workers discovered a male body in the thick brush of a 900-meter-deep ravine. The body was severely decomposed, making identification almost impossible. Fortunately, a tattoo on the man's arm bore the name Raja, allowing police to confirm that the deceased was indeed the missing husband. At first, police speculated that Raja may have accidentally fallen into the ravine. Just a month earlier, a Hungarian tourist had tragically slipped and died there after suffering a flare-up of rheumatoid arthritis while hiking. However, the preliminary autopsy on Raja revealed something far more sinister. He had suffered 2 severe blows to the head and multiple stab wounds in the abdomen, all inflicted by a sharp object. These injuries confirmed that Raja had not fallen, but had been murdered. Next to the body, police found a blood-soaked white shirt, a medical prescription slip, and a broken phone. At this point, Raja's death was officially ruled a homicide, but that raised more questions. Where was his wife Sonam? Had she also been killed? And who was the killer? Raja's brother told the media that criminal gangs in Shillong, the capital of Meghalaya, were known for targeting tourist couples, robbing or even kidnapping them for ransom. He pointed out that during video calls with the family, Raja was often seen wearing expensive jewelry like gold chains and rings. When the body was found, all that jewelry had mysteriously vanished. Raja's family firmly believed that the entire incident was caused by locals in Meghalaya. They had no faith in the state's police force and strongly demanded that the Central Bureau of Investigation step in. This placed immense pressure on local law enforcement and the state's tourism department. In response, the Meghalaya state government formed a special investigative task force to conduct a deeper probe into the case. Soon after, police found a blood-stained knife not far from the crime scene. The blade was sharp and appeared to have been purchased specifically for committing the crime. It was not locally made and was uncommon in the Cherrapunji area, leading police to suspect that the perpetrator was not from the region. Meanwhile, a local villager discovered the scooter the couple had rented. 2 days later, police found Sonam's bloodied jacket at a spot located between the crime scene and where the scooter was recovered. However, the jacket appeared to have been intentionally placed there by someone. Around the same time, a local tour guide came forward with a key eyewitness testimony. At around 10 a.m. on May 23, 2025, while guiding another group up the mountain trail, the guide claimed to have seen Raja and Sonam descending the path, followed closely by 3 men. Raja was speaking to the 3 men in Hindi, but the guide couldn't understand the conversation due to a language barrier. He didn't speak Hindi. Nonetheless, the guide's account provided police with a crucial lead. For the first time, 3 unidentified men were placed near the couple just before they disappeared. Combined with the discovery of the non-local knife, police began suspecting that the case might be a premeditated murder rather than a random robbery. Police then examined the couple's phone records and discovered that during this period, Sonam was in frequent contact with a young man named Raj Kushwaha. In fact, during the honeymoon, the frequency of their calls increased rather than decreased. On the very day of the murder, May 23rd, Sonam even shared her live location with Raj. Raj, aged 21, was 3 years younger than Sonam. He had previously worked at her father's factory, where the two had been colleagues in the Human Resources Department. During their time working together, they developed a romantic relationship. Sonam once confessed her love for Raj to her family and expressed her desire to marry him. But Raj came from a poor background, far below the social class of Sonam's wealthy family. Her mother reportedly told her bluntly, "Unless I'm dead, I will never allow you to marry that piece of garbage." Following this confrontation, Sonam's parents began urgently searching for a husband, hoping to marry her off quickly and put an end to her rebellious ideas about choosing love freely. Once the arranged marriage between Sonam and Raja was confirmed, Sonam was furious. She told her mother, "If you force me to marry Raja, don't blame me for doing something cruel. I'll only ever marry the man I love. Whatever happens after this, don't say I didn't warn you." Phone records revealed that before and after the murder, Sonam and Raj called each other 234 times. Sonam had 2 phone numbers, both of which had been used to contact Raj, and every call lasted more than 30 minutes. These findings led police to suspect that Sonam may still be alive, and that she and Raj might have orchestrated the murder together. On June 4, 2025, Raja's body was returned to his hometown for the funeral. Sonam remained missing, her whereabouts still unknown. Police reviewed footage from 42 different security cameras across various locations and discovered that 3 suspects had consistently been following Raja and Sonam. Through technical surveillance and detailed video analysis, the investigation team was able to identify the 3 suspects, Vishal, Akash, and Anand. All 3 had been living in Delhi for a long time. Vishal earned a living by offering motorbike taxi rides, occasionally taking on odd jobs. Akash was homeless and unemployed, and Anand had no stable occupation either. The only known connection between these 3 and Sonam was that they all had close ties to Sonam's boyfriend, Raj. Police immediately dispatched 2 task forces to the states of Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh. At 10 p.m. on June 8, 2025, Vishal and Akash were arrested, and Raj, Sonam's boyfriend, was also taken into police custody. In an unexpected twist, just a few hours later, around 1 a.m. on June 9, 2025, Sonam appeared at a Western-style restaurant in Ghazipur district, Uttar Pradesh, asking the restaurant owner to help her call home and report that she was safe. She also provided her current address. Sonam's family immediately reported her reappearance to the Madhya Pradesh police, who then coordinated with police in Ghazipur district. At 1:40 a.m., police arrived at the restaurant and found Sonam looking disheveled and distressed. She told officers that a few days earlier, while traveling in Meghalaya with her husband, they had been attacked by robbers. According to her, the assailants stole her jewelry, killed Raja on the spot, and knocked her unconscious, and she had no idea how she ended up in Ghazipur. However, just a few hours later, the testimony of another woman completely unraveled Sonam's story. This woman, a local resident of Ghazipur, claimed that Sonam was lying. She explained that at 9:30 p.m. the night before, she had just gotten off a train at Varanasi Kant station, preparing to take a bus to Ghazipur. That's when she saw Sonam. Sonam had her face covered with a mask and scarf, and she was accompanied by 2 young men, who also had their faces wrapped in cloth. Sonam approached the woman and asked which bus went to Ghazipur. After the woman gave directions, both boarded the same bus about 10 minutes later. The woman sat by the window, and Sonam sat next to her, asking for some water to wash her face. It was then that the woman got a clear look at Sonam's face. An hour and a half later, the woman got off the bus midway, while Sonam continued the journey. The next morning, the woman saw news reports of Sonam's miraculous reappearance and her false account, so she immediately contacted the police to set the record straight. Sonam was then taken to a local one-stop public service center for a medical evaluation. During this time, police from Meghalaya and Madhya Pradesh coordinated their efforts, and the 4th suspect, Anand, was apprehended in Madhya Pradesh. With this, the mastermind Raj and all 3 of his accomplices were in police custody. Later that evening, Sonam herself was also formally detained by authorities. On June 9, 2025, the Meghalaya State Police held their first official press conference regarding the case, announcing that Raja was not murdered by unknown assailants, but rather that his wife, Sonam, and her boyfriend, Raj, had orchestrated the entire plot, hiring 3 contract killers to carry out the murder. These 3 hitmen were all close friends of Raj. Sonam's father publicly rejected this claim, insisting that his daughter was completely innocent. He accused the Meghalaya government of fabricating the story from the very beginning in order to protect its tourism industry and government reputation. However, the Meghalaya police responded by stating that all 5 suspects had already been transferred back to the state and taken to the crime scene for identification. According to officials, all suspects had confessed to their crimes. Furthermore, Sonam's own brother admitted publicly to the media that he was 100% certain Sonam was the true mastermind behind the murder. After the incident, the entire family decided they would cut ties with her permanently. According to official reports from both the police and media, Sonam had begun conspiring with Raj to kill her husband Raja not long after their wedding. In this plot, Raj paid 2 million rupees to hire 3 of his friends to help carry out the plan. They had arranged in advance to travel to Guwahati, planning to eliminate Raja when the couple visited the temple there. Along the journey, Sonam continuously shared her live location to help the killers track their target. However, the initial murder attempts all failed, as the assailants were inexperienced and lacked the necessary skills. On the morning of May 23, 2025, shortly after 9 a.m., Raja and Sonam walked toward Kinram Falls. The location was remote, rarely visited, and lacked any surveillance cameras or vehicle traffic. The area was surrounded by dense forest and mountainous terrain, an ideal spot to strike. At 9:45 a.m., the couple unintentionally walked into the camera view of a travel blogger. Coincidentally, just 20 minutes earlier, the blogger had captured a photo of the 3 assailants. This indicated that the killers had arrived at the scene 20 minutes before Raja and Sonam. However, by 10 a.m., a local tour guide saw Raja and Sonam walking and chatting with the 3 suspects. This confirmed that before 10 o'clock, the killers had already approached Raja as planned. They pretended to be fellow travelers from Delhi, claiming to be tourists just like Raja, in an effort to befriend him and gain his trust, while secretly waiting for the right moment to carry out the murder. On June 17, 2025, police reported that during a reenactment at the crime scene, all 5 perpetrators confessed to their crimes. On the day of the murder, the 3 assailants traveled to Kinram Falls, where they met up with Sonam and Raja. They left the site together on motorbikes, intending to kill Raja in the parking area, but the plan failed when Raja drove off on his own. The killers then tracked Sonam's live location and followed her to the Kinram Falls parking lot. After Raja parked his bike, the suspects lured him toward the observation deck under the pretense of taking pictures, the very spot where Raja was ultimately murdered. At that moment, Raja was calmly enjoying the view, completely unaware that the killers had arrived. One of the assailants attacked him from behind, striking his head and causing blood to pour instantly. Sonam stood beside him, coldly ordering the others to finish it. The same men who had just pretended to be Raja's friendly companions now drew knives and delivered a fatal blow. Police confirmed that 2 different weapons were used in Raja's murder. In addition to the cleaver-like knife discovered earlier, a second, sharper blade was also involved. After reenacting the crime at the scene, authorities successfully recovered this second weapon. Once Raja was killed, Sonam took the jewelry from her husband's body and divided it among the attackers. She then smashed Raja's phone and threw it into the ravine to destroy evidence. The killers lifted Raja's body over the railing and hurled it into the deep gorge. To mislead investigators, Raja's scooter was moved from the original parking lot to a road 20 kilometers away in an attempt to steer police away from the actual crime scene near Kinram Falls. This was clearly a premeditated murder. The 3 killers had traveled to Meghalaya, purchased new SIM cards, and discarded them immediately after the crime to avoid being tracked. After the killing, the 3 assassins split up and fled. Meanwhile, Sonam took a taxi to Guwahati, boarded a train to Delhi, and hid in an apartment she and Raj had rented in advance. According to their plan, after a few days they would spread the rumor that Sonam had drowned at a waterfall. Then they would murder another woman, burn the body, and claim it was Sonam, making it appear that she had died while the real Sonam could disappear safely. However, after the first suspect was arrested, Raj panicked. He told Sonam to flee back to her hometown in Ghazipur and fabricate a victim story to mislead the police and buy time. On June 22, 2025, another suspect was captured. His name was Shivam, a real estate agent. After the murder, Shivam had moved and burned a suitcase belonging to Sonam, which contained cash, jewelry, and a handgun. That gun had originally been intended to shoot Raja, but Shivam took it and hid it elsewhere. On the night of June 23, 2025, the security guard of the rented apartment, Balveer, was also arrested and brought to Shillong for questioning due to his connection to the case. Because of the gruesome and complex nature of this crime, which goes far beyond a typical homicide, police are still actively investigating. Many details have yet to be released publicly. If all goes according to plan, police will officially file charges by September 2025. We will continue to update you on the latest developments in the comments section of this video. And now, let's move on to the second iconic case in this episode. On July 25, 2017, residents of an apartment building in Sana'a, the capital of Yemen, were collecting water for cooking when they were suddenly overwhelmed by a strong stench of decay. Moments later, they discovered something horrifying: a man's dismembered body stuffed into sacks and submerged in the water tank. Shortly afterward, an Indian nurse named Nimisha Priya was arrested by Yemeni police and charged with murdering her husband. When the news reached India, a man named Tommy Thomas was shocked beyond belief because the woman accused of murdering her husband was his wife. His wife had left home to make a living abroad, working hard to support her family. How could she suddenly be accused of killing her husband? Wasn't he her husband? How could she possibly have another husband? Or had the police arrested the wrong person? Thomas believed it was simply a misunderstanding, one that could be easily cleared up and lead to his wife's release. But to his dismay, things only became more and more surreal. With no legal support or defense, Nurse Priya was sentenced to death. Countless people began to speak out in her defense, arguing that she was merely a powerless woman struggling to survive who had acted out of desperation. But had Priya really killed the man in the water tank? To understand the full story, we must go back to Priya's childhood. Priya was born into a poor family in the Indian state of Kerala. From a young age, she was bright and academically gifted, a child with great potential. Sadly, her family's poverty meant they couldn't afford to keep her in school. A local Christian church stepped in and provided financial aid, allowing Priya to study nursing. But due to unfortunate circumstances, she missed her final exams and was unable to become a licensed nurse in Kerala. In 2008, at just 19 years old, Priya left her hometown and moved to Yemen, determined to pursue her dream. She landed a job as a nurse at a public hospital in Sana'a, the capital. The job paid well, and her life was stable. Every month, she sent money back home, slowly improving her family's financial situation. In 2011, her family arranged for her to return to India to get married. Since arranged marriages are the norm in her community, Priya didn't object and married a man named Thomas, chosen by her parents. Thomas was a three-wheeler driver. His background was also modest, financially on par with Priya's family. It was, as they say, a suitable match. In 2012, Thomas followed Priya to Yemen. He found work as an electrician's assistant, while Priya left the public hospital and began working at a private hospital in Sana'a, where the pay was better. At the end of 2012, the couple welcomed the birth of their daughter. With this new life came greater financial strain and responsibility. While Priya's income was decent, Thomas's salary was minimal. Trying to build a decent life in a foreign land quickly became a real struggle. The couple discussed their options and decided it would be best for Thomas to return to India with their daughter, while Priya remained in Yemen to continue working. This would allow her to earn more money while reducing their overall living expenses. In April 2014, Thomas took their daughter back to Kerala, resumed his old job, and borrowed money to buy an electric rickshaw to support their family. With her husband and child gone, Priya was able to focus completely on her work. She was highly skilled, passionate, and kind to patients and co-workers alike. Anyone who came to her once would often request to see her again. Her colleagues at the hospital praised her temperament and work ethic. Over time, Priya built up a steady clientele. She began discussing with Thomas the possibility of opening her own clinic in Yemen. Owning a practice would certainly earn more than working on a fixed salary. Thomas supported her decision. But under Yemeni law, foreign nationals were required to have a local Yemeni business partner in order to open a clinic or shop. That's when Priya thought of Mahdi, the owner of a small clothing shop near the hospital. Years earlier, when Mahdi's wife gave birth, Priya had stayed up all night helping with the delivery, and a bond had formed between them. Mahdi's family was deeply grateful. Now, hearing that Priya needed a local partner for licensing, Mahdi readily agreed to help. With the legal requirement met, Priya thought things would be simple. But it wasn't that easy. When the owner of the private hospital where Priya worked found out she planned to leave and open her own practice, he was furious. The two had a heated and intense argument. Eventually, they reached a compromise. The hospital owner would receive a 33% share in the new clinic and contribute part of the investment to help launch it. He wanted dividends. While Priya saw it as a necessary deal, she was short on funds. Thomas borrowed 1 lakh rupees from friends and family. Combined with other loans and the hospital owner's investment, they scraped together a total of 5 million rupees to launch the clinic. After much struggle, they finally had enough to proceed. Priya made it clear to Mahdi that although he was her partner in name, she had personally financed the entire project. All she needed was for him to serve as the legal witness so she could obtain a license. In return, she would pay him a fee, and after that, each would go their separate ways. No further involvement. Mahdi readily agreed. Everything went smoothly. In 2014, Priya's clinic officially opened. The couple's dream had finally come true. To everyone's surprise, patients flooded in as soon as the clinic launched. Life was finally looking up. Even Thomas couldn't help but marvel. At that time, the clinic was truly thriving. In January 2015, their daughter was baptized back in Kerala. Priya planned to return to India for the occasion. Mahdi also expressed interest in visiting India, so the two traveled together. Thomas was overjoyed, treating Mahdi like a benefactor. He welcomed him warmly, took him sightseeing, and made sure Mahdi lacked for nothing. Thomas handled everything himself and treated Mahdi like family. Mahdi quickly blended into their lives, and by the end of the trip, he knew everything about Thomas and Priya's past. A month later, Priya and Mahdi returned to Yemen, thinking life would continue as peacefully as before. But no one could have foreseen what happened next. On March 26, 2015, barely 2 months after Priya's return to Yemen, Saudi Arabia launched airstrikes, deploying hundreds of fighter jets and 150,000 troops. Soon after, Egypt, Morocco, and 10 other countries joined in. The Yemeni civil war escalated into a new Middle Eastern conflict. The situation deteriorated rapidly. Over the next 2 months, the Indian government conducted multiple evacuations of Indian citizens from Yemen. Priya chose to stay. Even though the clinic was doing well, she still had massive debt, and this was the business she had built with her own hands. She couldn't let it go so easily, so Priya remained in Yemen. The situation worsened. Sana'a, the capital, fell under the control of Houthi forces, and visa services were entirely suspended. Thomas was deeply worried but helpless. He couldn't travel to Yemen to support her. Having missed the evacuations, Priya was now left alone in Yemen to run the clinic herself. As the clinic became increasingly profitable, Mahdi grew greedy. Though he had invested nothing, he was still listed as the legal partner, and now he began scheming to claim a share of the profits. From Mahdi's perspective, Priya was a lonely and powerless woman living abroad, with no one to rely on but him. After years of working together, Priya had grown to fully trust him, never suspecting any betrayal. Mahdi seized the opportunity. While registering a new vehicle for the clinic, he secretly listed himself as a co-owner. He then manipulated clinic documents to insert his name into the shareholder records. When he realized Priya had no idea, his ambition grew. Eventually, he set his sights on her profits. He secretly instructed the clinic's cashier to hand over Priya's dividend payments to him. Then he spread rumors among the staff, claiming that Priya was his wife, and as her husband, he had the right to manage her income. When Priya heard the rumors, she was furious and immediately confronted Mahdi. But the man who once spoke to her gently now mocked her shamelessly, saying he was only looking out for her. After all, he said, she was a single woman in Yemen, and having a husband could spare her many problems. Powerless to resist, Priya watched as Mahdi began treating the clinic as his own property, pocketing profits, and even interfering in management and decision-making. The clinic staff, unaware of the tensions, genuinely believed Mahdi was Priya's husband. It's worth noting just how calculated Mahdi's deception truly was. While visiting Kerala, India, during his sponsored trip, Mahdi secretly stole Priya and Thomas's wedding photo. Using Photoshop, he replaced Thomas's face with his own. With that doctored photo, Mahdi was even able to forge a marriage certificate in Yemen. Under Yemeni law, this made Priya his legal wife. In Yemen, women hold very low legal and social status, and the law contains blatant gender discrimination. A woman's testimony in court carries only half the weight of a man's. In most legal disputes, women are routinely dismissed or ignored. To make matters worse, Yemen permits polygamy, meaning a foreign woman like Priya stood no chance of winning a legal battle against a native man like Mahdi. At this point, Priya's wings were clipped. She became a caged bird, trapped in Mahdi's control. By 2016, Mahdi's behavior grew increasingly abusive. He began beating Priya, violently and repeatedly. Unable to endure it any longer, Priya finally went to the Sana'a police to report the abuse. But let's not forget, Yemen was deep in civil war, and the authorities in Sana'a were in disarray. Citing concerns about inciting unrest, police arrested both Mahdi and Priya, sentencing each to 6 days in jail. While in custody, Mahdi once again submitted the fake marriage certificate to the court. The court, without any thorough review, officially declared them husband and wife, and released them. The legal system fully believed Mahdi's lies. As for Priya, what more could she do? After being released from jail, Mahdi held a deep grudge against Priya. He began showing up at her apartment every day to harass and intimidate her, and even attempted to sexually assault her. On several nights, high on drugs and alcohol, Mahdi would bring a group of friends to her home and force Priya to spend the night with them. If she dared say no, she would be met with brutal beatings. In a place like Yemen, women almost never go out at night. But to survive, Priya was forced to flee her home every evening, wandering the streets all night. She couldn't escape. Mahdi had confiscated her passport and controlled all her legal documents. No one could save her. If she wanted to return home alive, she would have to save herself. Mahdi forbade her from contacting her family. He destroyed dozens of her SIM cards. Every time she got a new phone number, he'd break it. In total, she went through 26 SIM cards, secretly using them just to make brief calls. Even then, she could rarely reach her family. Due to the war, phone lines were often down. Conversations, when they happened, barely lasted a minute, and most of the time, she could only send voice messages. Despite everything, Priya didn't stop fighting back. Mahdi was in and out of jail, sometimes because Priya reported him, sometimes due to his fraudulent real estate and financial scams against others. Mahdi was never a good man, just a skilled deceiver, someone Priya had once trusted too easily. But the courts were always lenient with Mahdi. When he promised to return Priya's money, scooter, and passport, they let him go. Of course, once freed, he broke every promise and escalated his abuse and humiliation of Priya. That's when Priya fully realized she was living in a hell with no way out. As long as she stayed in Yemen, she would never be free. She had to find a way back to India. She begged Mahdi to return her passport, even offering him all her money. But Mahdi had complete control over her and wasn't about to let her go. Then, a patient at the clinic gave Priya a potential solution. This patient was the warden of the prison Priya had once been held in. He regularly came to the clinic for checkups and had formed a good relationship with Priya. He also had some knowledge of her situation with Mahdi. The warden suggested a risky plan. If Priya could find an opportunity to knock Mahdi unconscious, she could tie him up and force him to reveal the location of her passport. For Priya, desperate and with no options left, This was the most viable path. In July 2017, Mahdi came to Priya's home again, high on drugs and mentally unstable. While he was disoriented, Priya injected him with a sedative, but the sedative had no effect, possibly due to the drugs in Mahdi's system. The next day, he returned, still under the influence. Again, Priya gave him another injection, this time increasing the dose. What she didn't expect was that Mahdi suddenly began screaming uncontrollably. He collapsed to the ground, his body convulsing violently. When silence finally returned to the house, Priya approached his body trembling, only to find he was dead. Technically, a sedative overdose shouldn't have caused such a rapid death. Priya guessed that the combination of drugs and sedatives may have caused a fatal anaphylactic shock. She was terrified. All she had wanted was her passport back. She never planned to kill him. Panicked, she reached out to her closest friend, Hanam. Hanam was also a nurse who lived in the apartment downstairs. She had witnessed Mahdi's abusive behavior many times and felt deep sympathy for Priya. She urged her to find a way to dispose of the body quickly. Together, the two women made a grim decision. They would dismember Mahdi's body, place the parts into sacks, and hide them inside the building's water tank. After cleaning up the scene, they fled in fear, traveling 380 kilometers to the city of Aden. But on July 25th, 2017, the building's residents noticed a foul smell in the water. Following the trail, they discovered Mahdi's body inside the water tank. Priya and Hanam were arrested and transported back to a prison in Sana'a. The news spread like wildfire. Almost every news outlet reported that a nurse from Kerala, India, had dismembered her Yemeni husband and stuffed him into a water tank. When the story reached Thomas, Priya's real husband in India, he was stunned. How could his wife have a Yemeni husband? Thomas tried everything to get in touch with her, but failed. It wasn't until a few days later, from inside the prison, that Priya finally managed to call him. As previously mentioned, women in Yemen have very little legal standing. Unsurprisingly, the legal proceedings against this foreign woman were careless and deeply flawed. Throughout the entire legal process, Priya received no legal support whatsoever. The court did not assign her a defense attorney. She had no choice but to defend herself in court. At the hearing, Priya clearly explained how Mahdi had forged the marriage certificate and how everyone had been led to mistakenly believe she was his wife. She stated that if the court truly wished to investigate, they could simply verify her passport information, and it would immediately become obvious that the marriage certificate was a fake. Her name was misspelled on the document, and it did not match her official passport. How could it possibly be legitimate? In addition, the court could easily question the neighbors, who could testify that Mahdi repeatedly harassed and abused her. Priya's arguments were logical and supported by evidence. She fought with everything she had. But in 2018, the trial court stubbornly convicted her of murder. To silence public criticism, the court pretended to assign her a defense attorney. But it was a fresh graduate, completely inexperienced, and unable to even draft a proper appeal. Moreover, all documents related to the case, from the police investigation to the trial, were written in Arabic. Priya did not understand Arabic and had no idea what she was signing. She signed blindly, based solely on instructions from the authorities. Unsurprisingly, in 2018, the court rejected Priya's appeal, sentencing her friend Hanam to life in prison and Priya to death. That incompetent lawyer lacked the qualifications to escalate the case to the Supreme Court. Eventually, with the help of a legal aid organization, Priya was finally able to submit an appeal to the Supreme Court. In 2020, her case was retried, but once again, the appeal was denied, and her original sentence was upheld. When the story of Priya's case reached India, many compassionate citizens were moved and formed the International Action Committee to Save Priya. This organization was established with the goal of advocating for Priya's release, using negotiation and diplomatic pressure. In prison, Priya formed close bonds with her fellow female inmates, who fully supported her and hoped she would one day regain her freedom. However, in November 2023, the Supreme Judicial Committee of Yemen again rejected Priya's final appeal. Priya's mother and husband wished to travel to Yemen, but the Indian government denied their request, citing security risks. India has no diplomatic mission in Yemen and cannot ensure their safety. Yemen's southern city of Aden had become a battleground between Houthi forces and government troops, embroiled in a protracted civil war. India had not formally recognized any ruling government in the conflict. For Indian citizens to visit Yemen, they would need to fly into Aden, then travel 12 to 14 hours by road to reach Sana'a, an extremely dangerous journey. In April 2024, after lengthy negotiations, the Indian government finally approved Priya's mother, husband, and daughter to travel to Yemen. Their mission, to visit Priya and negotiate with the family of Mahdi, seeking a possible release agreement. Since the case falls under the jurisdiction of Houthi-controlled territory, it is subject to rulings from their religious courts, which follow Islamic law. The most viable path for Priya to avoid the death penalty is to invoke Sharia principles and pursue a blood money settlement, a form of financial compensation to the victim's family in exchange for clemency. Of course, this is only possible if Mahdi's family agrees to drop their demand for execution. The Houthi armed forces, aligned with Shia Islam, continue to implement Islamic law in the regions under their control. Under religious law, in certain circumstances, if the defendant offers a negotiated sum to the victim's family, the sentence may be reduced or waived. This form of compensation is known as blood money. It is believed that the blood money required in this case amounts to approximately 700,000 rupees. However, Mahdi's family has yet to confirm or reject the offer. Regardless of the amount, this figure is far beyond what Priya's impoverished family can afford. They wrote letters requesting financial assistance from the Kerala state government in India, but received no response. Thomas, Priya's husband, ran around tirelessly and was only able to raise 10,000 rupees. Thomas later told reporters, "They keep saying my wife killed her Yemeni husband, but she's my wife. That man knew I existed. He had his own wife, yet still tried to take my wife away. Years ago, we borrowed a huge sum to open our clinic. We're still drowning in debt. How can I save her?" In June 2024, the International Action Committee for Priya launched a crowdfunding campaign to help her reduce her sentence. A prominent businessman from Kerala pledged to donate 10 million rupees. But a major challenge remained. Who would negotiate with Mahdi's family? After deliberation, it was decided that a professional negotiator, designated by the Indian embassy, would handle the talks. However, before even beginning negotiations, the negotiator demanded $40,000 in fees, with $20,000 due up front. The volunteer organization paid the advance, but midway through negotiations, the negotiator suddenly halted, demanding the remaining balance before continuing. Whether the rest of the money was paid and what became of the negotiations has not been officially disclosed. On December 30th, 2024, the president of Yemen rejected Priya's plea for clemency, ordering that her execution be carried out within 1 month. But in January 2025, Yemeni authorities suddenly reversed their position, stating that the president had not yet signed off on Priya's death sentence. Indian officials said they were still actively exploring ways to rescue Priya or prevent the execution. In mid-February 2025, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi revealed that he had personally requested intervention in Priya's case during a meeting with a senior envoy from the Houthi armed forces. He also discussed the matter with India's Foreign Minister Subramanyam Jaishankar during a break at the Indian Ocean Conference in Muscat. The Iranian Foreign Minister expressed optimism, saying that Mohammed Abdul Salam, the Houthi military spokesperson, had assured him that they would make every effort to find a humane resolution. On July 10, 2025, Priya informed her husband via a prison message that her execution date had been set for July 16th. As the fateful day approached, the International Action Committee to Save Priya launched a final effort, dispatching skilled volunteers to negotiate directly with Mahdi's family. In these talks, the committee offered $1 million in blood money in exchange for clemency. They also expressed willingness to increase the amount if necessary. However, Mahdi's family has yet to respond clearly. They have neither accepted nor outright rejected the offer. Priya's family is in anguish. Her mother sold their home and traveled to Yemen in desperation, trying to save her daughter. She stayed in Yemen for a time, making continuous efforts to contact the victim's family, but they repeatedly refused to engage. Meanwhile, Thomas remained in India, tirelessly seeking support from the public and the government. Despite overwhelming challenges, the family continued to believe that Priya would survive and return home. According to an anonymous official from India's Ministry of External Affairs, Priya's case has been closely monitored from the beginning, and relevant agencies have consistently supported her family. The governor of Kerala and several members of parliament have submitted formal petitions, urging the Indian central government to intervene. However, Priya's fate still rests entirely on the response of Mahdi's family, as well as continued efforts at the diplomatic level. The story of Nimisha Priya in Yemen is a tragic account of a woman trapped in a system of oppression and exploitation. Once a dedicated nurse with dreams of building a better life for her family, she fell into the hands of a predator and now faces a death sentence. Her case exposes grave injustices in legal systems and the systemic inequality women face in certain parts of the world. It also raises important questions about the thin line between self-defense and crime. These two cases, though different in nature, send a powerful message about the need to protect human dignity and to reform outdated patriarchal social norms in today's modern world.